everyone, so for today's video I'm going to show you how to make this cute little greeting card. It can really be used for any occasion. I love sending this card to a friend or someone near and dear to me when they're just having a bad day, or I want them to know that I'm thinking of them. It's super quick, super easy to make, and it looks beautiful. So let's go ahead and jump in. Okay, so for this project you're going to need quite a few supplies. But if you already have this stuff at home, or if you have stuff that's similar, you can make this card and change it however you want. So the main thing is you're going to end up needing 4 different stamp pads. For me, I chose these colors, but you can choose whatever colors you have. If you have 4 other stamp pads at home that you want to use, go ahead and use them. It's no problem doing that. So I'm going to be using Wild Wasabi, Soft Sky, Wisteria Wonder, and Blushing Bride. Now all 4 of these stamp pads are in the Subtles collection, so if you have the Subtles collection, you already have all 4 of these stamp pads. We're also going to be using VERSAMARK since we're going to be doing some embossing. We're going to be using the Flower Patch stamp set and the Flower Fair Framelits dies. Whew, that's a tongue twister. We're going to be using a couple of the dies from here, so of course we're going to be using the Big Shot. For cardstock, you're only going to need Whisper White, so that's kind of the one piece of this that's a little more minimalistic, is you only need Whisper White. So we're going to be using a piece of, I might have to use the other side of this, a piece of Whisper White that is 8.5 by 5.5, so it's just your normal A2 sized card base. And then we have this piece, which is cut at 4 by 5.25, and then we have some scraps. So you're going to need one piece here to make your little banner where your sentiment is. So you just want to make sure that it's, I would say, do it about 4.5 inches if you're really tight on space. That way that it'll fit all the way across. But I just had this scrap, so I'm going to use the scrap, and that way I'll have plenty of room. And then I also have these 2 scrap pieces to do my stamping and my dies. I'm not sure exactly how much I'm going to need, so I just grabbed a couple of scrap pieces. But again, you just need however much it's going to take to cut out to stamp and then cut out your images. The last couple of things, we're going to be using silver embossing powder and clear embossing powder. And I grabbed my my embossing buddy, because we're going to be embossing over some of the ink, and I want to make sure that it only gets where we want it to get. Oh, and you know what? I completely forgot. I don't know how I forgot. We're also going to be using the watercolor wash background stamp for this as well. So you're going to need this too. So you'll need 2 stamp sets in this, and this being one of them. So let's go ahead and jump in. Okay, so to start, I'm going to take my base layer, which again, this is cut at 4 by 5.25, and I'm going to take the watercolor wash background stamp set. We're going to use our first color, and this is Soft Sky. This is the only piece of this that you'll need to use Soft Sky. So if you have a piece of designer series paper, or if you have a piece of really pretty scrapbook paper that you want to use as the background, you don't have to do this step. You can use a different background, and then that eliminates having to use the Soft Sky, since that's the only piece of this that we're using this for. But I like the Soft Sky, so I'm going to go ahead and use it. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to take, let me move this over a little bit. I'm going to take my stamp, and I have an acrylic desk, so sometimes it sticks down pretty well. It doesn't look like it's going to do it this time, but I'm just going to take my Soft Sky and just ink this stamp up. As you see, I'm doing this upside down, and that's just because it's a larger stamp, so it's a lot easier to do it this way, and I find that you get a better result when you do it this way versus stamping or putting the stamp on top of the ink pad as you normally would with most other smaller stamps. So now that we've done that, I'm just going to take my background piece and place it on, and I should have grabbed a scratch piece of paper, but I don't have one nearby. So this is just going to be good enough. If I get a little ink on my fingers, it's going to be okay. Okay, so I think that's probably good. And then you're just going to lift it up, and that's our background. So I'm going to take this, I'm going to put this off to the side, and that's all we need this stamp pad for, or stamp pad. So we need that stamp and, like I said, this stamp pad for. So I'm going to take this and set this off to the side as well. Next, let's start working on our little flowers. So I'm going to take the Flower Patch stamp set and I'm going to grab, this is on sheet 1 of 2 and it's the big flower. Ooh, these are kind of hard to get off because it's a big stamp. It's not hard, it's just, it gives you a little bit more resistance than some of the other stamps do. So I'm going to take my block and just put this guy on here. This is the D block, so it fits just perfectly on here. Then I'm going to take my Blushing Bride, and I think I'm going to try and do both of the flowers on this piece, and then I'll do the leaves on this piece. So I'm going to take my Blushing Bride stamp pad, and I'm holding it up because it's such a large stamp. It can really cling to the ink pad and get a little bit of a section, so I find it easier to kind of do this. Sometimes you just pick up the stamp pad, hold it, and then you can kind of give that little resistance. And I'm just going to stamp this just like that. And I think I might, so this is a little trick for you guys. If you're using larger photopolymer stamps, you can use a mouse pad, and sometimes that helps to get a crisper image. If you have the piercing mat, that helps too. It just gives a little bit of a resistance on the back. I see a couple, one spot right there where I don't think the ink is making contact with the paper. So if it doesn't, it's not, I mean, it'll just be kind of a little beauty mark is what I call them, but I'm going to try and get that in there. And if not, it's not a big deal. So now that I take it off, yeah, you can see that little tiny white spot right there, but it's no big deal. I'm not going to worry about it too much. So we're done with our Blushing Bride, and I don't think I'm going to be able to get a second flower on there. So I'm going to go ahead and grab this other little scrap, and that's why I said I wasn't sure how much paper I was actually going to need. So I just grabbed a couple of scraps that I had. Ooh, and I just got stuff all over my stamp. How did I manage to do that? Oh boy. That's what happens when you have baby wipes and tons of random stuff laying around. I should probably clean up more before I do videos, but you know, I just go with spur of the moment on a whim. So anyways, we're taking our same stamp now, and I'm going to use Wisteria Wonder and do the exact same thing. Just ink it up and then stamp it down. Ooh, and I got a little, there must have been a fuzz or a hair or something, so you can kind of see that right there. I don't like that. So always remember, there are two sides to every piece of paper. So I'm just going to flip it over and we're going to do it again. And I could have done that with the pink one too. The pink spot wasn't big enough for me to care as much. Sorry, I think I was doing that out of frame because I am a silly duck. It's early in the morning, guys, so you're going to hear my crazy words or crazy phrases. I don't even know. See, I don't know what I'm talking about. Okay, I think this one is better. Yeah, that looks good. So that's all we're going to need of this stamp. So I'm going to go ahead, and this color as well. So I'm going to set that off to the side. And now what we're going to do is I'm going to try and let these dry as much as possible. So we're going to go ahead and go into our leaves, which I think are on this one. So we're going to grab, excuse me, this little tiny leaf here. Move those off to the side. I'm going to grab, what block is this? My C block. You could use a smaller one if you wanted to, but I honestly feel like the first two blocks that I ever purchased were C and D, and I didn't really need another block for a long, long time. Well, actually, no, C, D, and H, because I liked the long, skinny for the sentiments and such. But these are pretty much the two blocks that I use all the time, so you can really get away with using these two. Anyways, total rant. Or rant, not rant, tangent, I don't know. Anyways, now I'm going to stamp 4 of these little leaves in, what is this, Wild Wasabi? Yes, Wild Wasabi. And I'm just going to stamp them anywhere. We're going to be using the Big Shot to cut all of these out. So I'm just going to make sure wherever I'm stamping them, I have enough room to put my little framelit and be good to go. So there's that. We have our 4 little leaves. And now comes the exciting part. Now we're going to start doing some embossing. Oh, see, I do need a scratch piece of paper. I think, oh man, I have one on the floor. Okay, I'm telling you guys, I'm just out of it today. Well, not out of it, but I just wasn't super prepared. I don't know why. I usually am. I thought I was prepared actually, but apparently not. Anyways, sorry, rambling again. So I'm going to take my mouse pad, move it out of the way, because I'm not really going to need it, and I'm going to be stamping on top of this white piece of paper anyways, so we're not going to be using it. Okay, so I'm going to take this other stamp from the set, and it's this one, that it's the same basic shape, but it's got the lines in it, so it brings out the petals. We're going to be stamping this in VERSAMARK and embossing it, and that's how you get this really cool tone-on-tone look. This is actually embossed. So to start, like I said, we are going to be stamping right on top of the ink that we already stamped on. So I don't want any of the embossing powder to stick to this purple ink. And now I have a dog barking. Sorry. Okay, sorry. I had a dog barking and I didn't want that to be in the video. So as I was saying, because we stamped these 2 images, I'm going to be using my embossing buddy because I don't want the embossing powder to stick to this whole image. I want to get those nice lines to bring out the petals. So I'm just going to take this and just put it over. I'm going to put it over these leaves too because I don't want any of the embossing powder to stick to that. And then I'm just going to set that off to the side. You do get some chalkiness around your area. You can, I don't know if you guys are going to be able to see that, but I just had a baby wipe. I'm just going to take my baby wipe and kind of move that out of the way. I also like to take the baby wipe and just kind of lightly dust it off. I find that it helps once you're done embossing, so you don't have kind of like a halo-y effect. Some of you guys might know what I'm talking about. If you don't get that, then you don't worry about it. It's not a big deal. Okay, so for this, we're going to be using our clear embossing powder and our VERSAMARK ink. We have our ink, or our stamp pad already mounted, so I'm just going to ink this up. Get it nice and juicy. And then the issue, it's not an issue. This stamp, you have to line up. And I don't think that's it. There are a couple knobs that are a little bit longer than all the others. Okay, that's it. So now that I have it kind of lined up, I'm going to just ink it up one more time just to make sure I'm good. You should probably line it up before, but I like to do things a little different. I like to make it more difficult for myself. And the nice thing is if it doesn't get lined up perfectly, it's not a big deal because it's going to look pretty no matter what. So I'm just going to sprinkle my embossing powder on, and I'm actually going to scooch these off to the side really fast. See, and that's, you probably can't see it very well right now, but once we heat set this, you'll really be able to tell. And I can tell I was a little off stamping, so these petals down here are a little off, but I don't think it's going to make that big of a difference. You're really not going to be able to see it. So I'm going to set this to the side really fast so I don't touch it and mess up the embossing. And I'm going to put my embossing powder back in my little container. And I'm going to do the exact same thing with the purple one. Now for the purple one, I'm going to try and line this up first. I think I have it. Yeah. So this is how it's going to go. This is how I need to stamp it. Just like this. And I'm going to try and line it up a little bit better, but if I don't get it perfect, then oh well. Really press it on there, lift off, take our embossing powder, and you guys can tell, I'm pretty liberal with my embossing powder. You're just going to dust it off and put it back in the container anyways, so it doesn't super matter. I'm going to take this, and I'm actually going to dump it away from me because I didn't want it to come up on these leaves and have the potential to get some embossing powder stuck to them. So there's that. I'm going to set that to the side just for a quick second while I funnel this back. I think I don't, oh no, I am going to need this piece of paper again in a minute. And since we have all of our embossing stuff out, we might as well do our sentiment because that's going to be embossed as well. So this thin piece of paper, like I was saying, let me bring this scratch piece of paper back over. This thin piece of paper, you can use a scrap, you can use whatever you want. I had this thin piece of paper. Really all you need to make sure is that it's wide enough so that you can, so that it'll wrap as a little band around your card. Because this is what our sentiment's going to be going on. I like to have a couple little tabs on the side. It makes it sticking it to the card and wrapping it around easier. You don't have to wrap it around. If you just want to cut it at 4 inches, you could do that. But this is kind of my preferred method. I just think it goes a little bit smoother. So I'm just going to, ooh, that is not straight. Going to, there we go. I think, yep, that's good. Sorry if you guys can see my head. Anyways, I'm just going to mount that, move this out of the way. This time we're going to be using silver embossing powder. And we're just going to ink up our stamp. And again, just put it, I'm going to be doing this, it's going to be slightly to the left of my card. So I'm going to stamp this to the left of this little band. Then I'm going to put my embossing powder down. And that's that. So for this one, I didn't bother using my embossing buddy because there wasn't really a whole lot that I felt like the embossing powder would stick to other than the piece. So if you live in an area that if you have a lot of static around or anything like that, you might want to use it more frequently. But I live in Colorado. I don't really ever find that I need to use it all the time. So put all of that stuff away. And now we can emboss our 3 pieces. So I'm going to once again grab my heat tool. We're going to be using setting number 2. As usual, I let it kind of warm up on my hand. Once I feel it getting pretty hot or pretty warm, I'm going to go ahead and start moving it around my pieces and start heating up the embossing powder. If you move it around and heat it up as a whole piece, it helps get a smoother finish. Especially when you're doing a larger piece like this, that is very important. So, and as you can see, it's turning that embossing powder. That's how we know it's done. I'm going to do my next flower. Since it's pretty much heated already, I don't need to move it around a whole bunch or heat it up again. The tool's already heated. Okay, and then our little sentiment, which this one should turn pretty quickly. And there is that. Put my little heat tool away. So now, ooh, see, I tell you guys, my desk pops up every time because it heats up the acrylic. Oh well. So now all of our pieces are embossed. I'm going to take this, our little sentiment banner piece, put that off to the side. And now we're going to be using our framelits and the Big Shot. So, I guess I don't need that piece. My little trick and what I like doing, and I just had washi tape over here, but I don't know what I did with it. Oh, found it. So my little trick is I like to take some washi and help the Finlit stick because I don't have a magnetic platform. I personally have not found that it's absolutely necessary. I'm sure it makes life easier, but I have other stuff I'd rather spend some money on. So I just take some washi. This is, oh, I can't remember which set this is from, but if I can find it, I'll put it down, or I'll put it in the coordinating blog post actually. So I just take some pieces of washi. Since this is a larger thinlet, or framelit, whatever it's called, I'm gonna use 2 pieces, one on each side. Since this is a smaller one, I'm just gonna take 1 piece and kind of put it towards the top. And then I'm just going to line it up. And again, you have to kind of mess with it until you get it correct. There you go. And then you just push your little pieces of washi down. And then I'm going to go ahead and do the leaves. So there's only 1 leaf, so we have 4, so you're gonna have to run it through 4 times because you can only do 1 at a time, obviously. And I'm gonna bring my big shot over. I'm gonna put both of my pieces down in here. Put my second plate on. Run it through once. And again, that cracking noise is perfectly normal. It's not breaking. Oh, it's not breaking, nothing's happening. It's just really pushing the die down into the paper. And it's actually, what it's doing is it's pushing it into this plastic piece, and that's where you hear the cracking. So, but it's perfectly normal. You're not hurting anything. So then I'm just going to move over and do my next little leaf. So I'm just going to line it up again. Push that down, and actually I think because I'm going to cut out this purple one, I'm going to do my leaf over to the side a little bit, just like that. I'm going to take my flower off, if I can get it off, and I'm going to line it up with the purple flower, and I think it goes this way. And there we go. So I'm going to do that and then run this one through, and then I'll have to run 2 other leaves through, and I will be right back. Okay, so now that I have my 3 little leaves cut out, we're basically ready to go ahead and start putting this card together. So what I'm going to do is actually, I'm going to be using some dimensionals, and I'm going to position my flowers kind of off the card. So if you can see in my example, I did the pink one up here, the purple one down here. I'm gonna pretty much just keep that same method or pattern, whatever you want to call that. So I'm just gonna use 3 dimensionals, but since I'm cutting the top off, I'm not gonna put them too close to the top. Ooh, I have that one stuck to my finger. And I'm just going to take my piece, see where my dimensionals are, and put it down just like that. Then I'm going to do the same with the purple one. I'm going to do 3. And I think that looks probably pretty good. So put my 3 dimensionals down. And just stick that down just like that. Then I'm going to grab some scissors, and I'm going to flip the card upside down so that I can see where the hangover is, and I'm just going to snip it off, and it's going to go flying everywhere apparently. This you don't have to be super precise with, because honestly once you cut it, you can't really tell on the front of the card. It just looks natural. So those little pieces are trash. Take my scissors, move them out of the way. Then we're going to take our little leaves, and the leaves I'm just going to be using some regular adhesive on. So let me flip these guys over, put some adhesive on the back of all of them. And I'm just going to kind of stick them down where I think they're going to look nice and give the card some movement. Sometimes with these littler or smaller pieces, you kind of have to get a tool or something to kind of place them where you want them. And you could always do one of the flowers and then place the leaves and then do the other flower, and that might help with this issue. Where did I just put, did I just stick my other leaf somewhere? Oh, it stuck to my hand. Okay. So I'm just going to stick this one down and stick this one down. And you can kind of see my cuts weren't perfect lining up the framelit, but I'm not super concerned about it. I think it looks just fine. Now in this project, I did the banner pretty thin. For this one, I think I'm actually going to leave it a little bit thicker. I kind of like it. I think it gives more anchor to the card. So I'm going to, where'd my scissors just go? There. I'm going to cut off. So I got it kind of lined up. I'm going to cut off what I trim this down a little bit, basically. Because I don't need that much, and that's just going to add a little bit of bulk to the back of the card. So I'm going to put those off to the side, and then I'm going to take my adhesive again, put 2 strips along the back, and then I just do a little bit extra on the ends because that's where it's really going to stick. Then I'm just going to place this on top, and did I do that straight? It's a little crooked. This adhesive is pretty permanent once you stick it down, but you have a little bit of time where you can kind of wiggle and play with it for just a second. Okay, that looks better. And then we're just going to take the tabs and fold them back to the back side. So now we have our little banner down, and we are almost done with this card. So I just need to grab my card base and my bone folder that's over here in the jar that I can't reach. Okay. And I'm just going to, just like this, fold my card base, open it up just like that, and then my little card is going to go right on top. And as usual, I'm going to be using 5 dimensionals. That's like just the good number to use for your card base. And the last one. Dun, 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 dun. And then we're just going to line this up and stick it down. And there you have it. There is your super simple greeting card for a friend, for a family member, anybody that you just want to say hello to, give them a nice little goodie in the mail, or at somebody like a coworker at their desk or something. It's a super, super beautiful card. And once you kind of get the hang of it, it really doesn't take very long, and you get this beautiful effect. So hopefully you guys enjoyed this video, and I will see you again later.